Right and back. Number 160 something. Don't know. I lost count. I barely know what day it is. I don't know what number whiskey I'm doing. I'm going to go with a 169. Maybe. Right, so this was another donation stroke pinch. Nicked it from the wonderful people at the Whisky Lounge in York. If you've not encountered the Whisky Lounge, do so. They do some fantastic events. If you're anywhere near York in September, I'm hoping to be at their Whisky Festival. They do a number of whisky festivals around the UK and they're all brilliant, and if I can get to the Manchester one I will do, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to make it or not. So this particular one was, I picked this tonight simply because I've done a couple of ryes and I fancy doing something slightly different but keep it American, so I've gone for this. So this is what Notch looks like. My wife's being nosy. Go away. I haven't finished yet, bugger off. Love you. So yes, so this is what the bottle looks like, and this is called Notch, and it is called Notch because it is not Scotch. So this is from a company called Triple Eight Distillery. Whoops, right, sticky bit on the back. Oh, it's old labelling. It's alright, could have been a lot worse. It could have been on the floor, and then we'd have been in trouble. So this is from the Triple Eight Distillery, which is on Nantucket Island, which is in Massachusetts. And the company started actually as a brewery called Cisco Brewers in 1995 by a couple called Doug and Melissa Long, who in 2000 expanded to become a distillery. So they do a vodka and a gin and everything like that, and got into distilling whiskey, but decided to go single malt rather than, you know, a bourbon or a rye or anything like that, just to try and do something different. So it's a single malt, it's not Scotch, it's Notch. There we go. So this uses 100%, hang on, Maris Otter malt. Doesn't mean a thing to a lot of people. Didn't mean much to me until I started reading up into it, because I was literally like, what the hell is a Maris Otter malt? And it's a very popular type of malt, particularly used with brewers. Adnams and Marstons in the UK swear by it pretty much. This is like their house malt that they use for their beers. So what they're doing is they're actually bringing it across apparently to their malts to make their whiskey. So it's unpeated, and they are using casks from Buffalo Trace to actually then mature it. So this is a 10-year-old. So it's a 10-year-old single malt from Nantucket Island. Now, I was trying to find out how much this was in order to be able to tell you how much it was should you want to buy it. Because this is very popular. This has won quite a few Whiskies Awards. In fact, I think it was this year's World Whiskies Awards that was earlier on this year. It won the Best American Single Malt. Now, okay, that's not quite the same as Best Scotch Single Malt because there's a lot more Scotch Single Malts, but it's still a pretty good award to win. And I'm fairly certain that at some point, if not this year or last year, the International Wine and Spirits competition, it won possibly Best Single Malt, if not American, like the whole lot. So it's really, really highly regarded. I couldn't find this for sale anywhere. I couldn't find anywhere that was selling it in the usual places that I look and the various search engines. But a number of places that had articles about this were saying that they'd seen it being sold for $880 a bottle because it's from the Triple Eight distillery. So is it that price because it's from Triple Eight, or is it that price because that's what they think it should be? Now, the bottle that I've shown you was from the guys at the Whisky Lounge, and they had a sampling bottle of everything like that. So whether that was they got it a pretty good, you know, here, have a sample bottle of this, bloody hell, thanks a lot, it's $880 a bottle, or whether it's just a case of they're not making that much. And it's another micro distillery. Whether it's just a case of I can't find it because I'm not looking in the right places, and actually it's only about $50. So I've no idea. So if anybody out there knows where you can get Notch from and how much it is, please do put it in the comments, because I couldn't find anything, nothing at all. So I'm at a complete loss. So this could be $880 worth of whiskey. Not this is $880 worth, but this is from an $888 bottle. In which case, I count myself very, very fortunate indeed. So, ooh. Now, apparently Jim Murray had a hand in the first few kind of batches of this, in terms of kind of like helping select casks and the first few bottlings that came out. Now, whatever your thoughts are of Jim Murray, the guy is heavily involved in the industry and has encountered a lot of whiskey. There is some debate as to whether he knows not that he knows what he's talking about, but what he says is for his benefit rather than for other people's, and whether he blows his own trumpet too much rather than trying to be fair and objective, who knows. But he was involved in this, so there is some expertise involved, however expert you think that expertise is. Now, it's unpeated malt, but there is a very slight peatiness to it, weirdly. There is a very, very gentle smokiness to it. And it's slightly oily as well. Yeah, reminds me a little bit of Scapa. In terms of there's a slight oiliness to it, there's a slight maritime element. Now, in Nantucket Island, it's an island, so it's surrounded by water. But you're not talking like coastal elements of Scotland here, but it's got very subtle elements of Scapa, and then also something like Bunnahabhain in terms of the sweetness that's in there as well. It's a really pleasant nose, and it's a very un-American whiskey nose. It's quite rich as well. And there is some peatiness in there. Not huge, and not pronounced or obvious, but it's there. It's very gentle, and it's very subdued. And also, being matured in Buffalo Trace casks. So we've got bourbon casks that are going on here as well. I'm guessing bourbon, could possibly be some rye, but let's, for sake of argument, say we're looking at Kentucky bourbon cask. There is a bourbony character to it as well. It's a weird combination of very, very soft, subtle Islay whiskey, the softest and subtlest of Islay whiskies, along with some bourbon characteristics. So there's a nice, like, dark plumminess to it, and again, Christmas cakey element to it. But it's almost like Christmas cake with icing on top, as well as kind of classic single malt characters. There's a maltiness to it. There's a richness. There's a depth to it. This is like drinking 3 whiskies in one. It's got bags of flavour to it. It really has. There's so much stuff going on here. So there's cane sugar and bananas and toffee and cream and Christmas cake. But like I say, it's Christmas cake and marzipan and icing, the whole lot together in a slab. There's a slight sea saltiness to it and a sea air feel, but really, really subdued, and a very, very mild sweet peat element as well. And amazingly, it stays balanced. 10-year good aging on it, particularly for America as well, with the climate that they've got. Now, Massachusetts, I don't know what their climate is, but it's certainly not going to be the same as Scotland. It's weird, you put the nose to it, and instantly you think, if you had this blind, you'd be thinking, yeah, probably Scotch single malt, Highland Speyside, something like that. Probably Highlands, because it's got a slight maritime edge to it, but you certainly wouldn't pick it as American by any stretch. This is a brilliant whiskey to try blind. Get a bottle of this if you can, or get some samples of it, and then share it with your friends. Get a few of you around the table, whiskey drinkers, and get them to try this blind, and get them to tell you where this comes from. Because I will be amazed if anybody says Massachusetts, and I'll be very, very surprised if anybody says America, to be perfectly honest, because this tastes more like a Scotch with bourbon maturation. But you'd even struggle if somebody said, yes, it's Scotch. I mean, It actually makes perfect sense now, because it tastes so much like Scotch, and it's not Scotch. It would be fascinating to see what people come up with as to where this is from in Scotland, because you'd be convinced that it's Scotch whisky, and then you're like, right, where's it from? Well, it might be Islay, it might be Highlands, could be Orkney, because it's got a little element of that, but then it's got some quite good Speyside characters. It's brilliant. It's really, really good. Just because it's such a bonkers bag of different flavours that on this work fantastically well. The problem I had with the Yippee-Ki-Yay the other day, and I keep going back to that because it really did kind of freak me out a little bit, was it was loads and loads of different flavours that just did not marry together. This has got loads of flavours that do. They bounce off each other, but they bounce off each other really well. They support each other. They make it interesting. You're constantly tasting different factors. That is fantastic. $888 a bottle, probably pushing it a little bit. $88 a bottle, yes, I would go for that. $88 a bottle, bollocks to it. Call it $88.80 to get your Triple 8 in there. I actually would say is, yeah, that's a pretty damn good price. Wow, what an unusual whiskey. Now I'm getting some oakiness coming through. I'm getting completely different flavours, and the finish is brilliant. The finish just keeps on going and going and going. It's like a bloody Duracell bunny. It's fantastic stuff. You could spend hours on that. It tastes different again. What the hell is going on? And I've done some Scotch already. And now and again I've come across the odd one or two where you go, actually, it's impossible to say, but you know, if somebody said, right, what's the best representation of Highland whiskey? It would be that one. What's the best representation of a Speyside? It could be that one, because it's got all those characteristics. If somebody was going to ask you, right, what does Scotch taste like? You could give them a glass of Notch and say, Scotch tastes like parts of this. This whiskey tastes like all of Scotch combined into one. It's got Islay, it's got Highland, it's got Speyside, it's got Lowland. It's mental. I think that's fantastic. I really do. I think it's, well, how would people be put off by it? There's a lot in there, and I think for a lot of people they might just want one or two parts of that flavour profile that's in there and go, well, I just want that element. I don't want all this other stuff that's kind of crowding it out. I think it works really well. It's not a mess of flavours. It just about holds its own, but there's so many different flavours in there that it just keeps pinging up. Oh, it tastes like this now. Oh, it tastes like that now. Oh, have this flavour. I'll tell you what, while you're at it, give us a minute and I'll get some more flavour out for you. Try that one, see if that's any good. It's excellent. I can see why it's won awards. Because it's like a vatting of every other malt that's probably been entered into that competition. It's mad. I'd love to know how much it is. If anybody can confirm that they've got a bottle or they've seen it on the shelf or anything like that, just to let me know. If it's $888 a bottle, to be honest, that's far too expensive. But if it's about $80, $100 a bottle is probably pushing it, but about $80 a bottle, I think, is a very, very good price, because that is a very, very good whiskey indeed. Right, that's me done on that one. That was two absolute crackers. Would that they were all like that, but unfortunately they're not, but that's part of the challenge, and that's half the fun of it. Right, I shall see you in the next one. Cheers.